Good. Stay ready. All right, guys, welcome to another episode with Steph's Homes podcast and all things ADU. This is episode 25, and it is sponsored by 10K Cards, which is a digital platform that I use for all my marketing. So I highly advise that you guys check out Sean at 10K Cards. And it's also sponsored by ADU Insider, and I'm currently here at ADU West Coast office. So this is where I do my recordings. Shout out to Cameron. And today we have a very special guest, guys. We have Landon, one of the CEOs, right, from Aux Box. They are based out of Canada, and I came across their page on Instagram, decided to send them a DM, and here we are today. So I'm really grateful that you took that opportunity and that you took time out of your day, right, to be here today. So thank you so much for being here.
My absolute pleasure. Thanks for reaching out. I'm glad you did, and I'm excited to chat to you.
Yeah, so I mean, you guys are killing it with the content alone. Today I want to really dive deep into the motivation and how your vision came about, right? If you can tell people a little bit about, introduce yourself, tell people a little bit about the company, and then we'll dive into the motivation aspect of it and how this all came about.
Sure, yeah. Well, I'm Landon. I'm one of the co-founders, and the other co-founder's name is Morgan, and we're carpenters. We're builders by trade. We both ran construction businesses for about a dozen years prior to Aux Box starting in 2018, and we just wanted to get into a product and wanted something we could build from start to finish that was our design and within our control, and avoid permitting at the time, to keep it simple. So we built a little 10-foot by 10-foot cube, basically, which was the ultimate backyard office. And that was 5 years ago, and then it was supposed to just be throw it on the side of the road and try and sell it. And it blossomed into a business that's been a lot of fun to build, and we're just trying to change the industry a little bit, shake up the industry. We call it positive disruption, where we're building a really compelling manufactured product, and we're excited that it's taken off. We're excited that there's people like you promoting the industry, and there's other people pushing additional dwelling units as well. So it's a bit about us. Pretty straightforward. Frustrated construction.
Yeah, I like it.
Design.
I mean, so you guys come from the traditional construction background as builders. What made you want to pivot or disrupt the industry in the modular manufactured, space? Was it because of time frame? Because I know here in California, that's one thing that we're trying to get better with, right? Is the permitting process. It takes a long time, let alone the construction phase on your traditional builds, right, versus these modulars. So is that part of the reason why you guys decided to go that route?
We were more frustrated with just the traditional method of building. It seemed super wasteful. The culture was really bad on most construction sites. Where we live, we're up on the west coast of Canada. You spend a lot of time out in really poor weather. Materials get muddy, stuff's getting damaged, morale is low for 4 months while it's cloudy and raining or snowing. And so we just wanted to get kind of under a roof and building a product that we could ship. And so it was born out of frustration, really. And then since we started, the business has evolved into something quite different. It was really product centric at the start, and then it's shifted into people centric. So we're trying to create a culture for construction workers that we believe is somewhat unique to the construction industry.
Can you touch a little bit more on that? I'm a big fan of culture for any company. I have a real estate team myself, and culture is huge in our business. Transparency and our mission alignment, making sure that we're connecting not just with business and our goals with business, but also our personal goals, right? Because that's really what drives us into the workforce. And I agree. I think that in traditional construction, the culture isn't always there. Just like realtors, there's so many of us, and not everybody has systems and processes in place, let alone culture. So how do you guys cultivate culture or curate space for good culture?
Well, frankly, early on in the business, we ended up hiring a business coach, and he really got us aligned with who we were as people, and then how to develop core values based on our existing values that could align with the business, and then through that attract the type of people that would want to work within those core values. And so that's where it started, and I think maybe this is consistent across the industry, like the ADU or the modular builder, the prefab builder. You can kind of attract the best out of the construction industry because you're working in a safe, environment controlled setting, and we're building really cool products. And so we've been able to kind of attract the best from the construction industry to come work with us who align with our culture. And we're very upfront about that. We vet everybody quite heavily before they come onto the team. And, there's a multi-stage process to make sure that they truly are going to, they're going to believe in what we're trying to do.
Company, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I do the same thing. Let me just mute my phone here. I do the same thing with the ADU meetups that I have. It's a great way for me to, one, vet people, align with people, that have the same mission, goals, and values as I do. And it's very easy, right? Once you know that avatar that you're going after, then you're simply just being and attracting like-minded people. And the ones who don't fit, then there's nothing wrong with that. Maybe they're a good fit for somebody else. But a little bit about what you guys have going on. You said that at first it was a product, but now it's more of a people product and more customer based, right? Customer centric. What are you guys doing to give that customer experience? I mean, I've seen your guys' work, which I hope a lot of you guys go and check out their Instagram. Whoever does that, the documenting of the Instagram does really well, because you can tell that you guys put a lot of time and effort, and you guys are inspired. I don't know what inspires you guys for some of these models. Can you touch a little bit on that?
Yeah, on the design side of things. So my business partner Morgan, he's the guy that's doing a lot of the Instagram work right now, okay. And yeah, he's he's pretty good at it. And he keeps it in line with who we are. So it's fairly light and fairly fun, and people seem to resonate with that. He also is the design guy. I'm the function guy, and so what you see aesthetically has been dictated mostly by him, and then I kind of just made sure that it would work, practically speaking, that it would function.
Got it.
And so this aesthetic really was I would say largely his, and then I just made sure that it wasn't going to leak water and things like that. Mm. So I thank him for that. And then I guess like the West, it's kind of got a West Coast theme. We're trying to integrate, like, it's modern and practical and doesn't require a bunch of maintenance, but it's got these natural elements that really make it feel like it fits in a West Coast theme. And that's been popular too, right? It's been a bit trendy, so we've been riding that. But one of our core values is growth, which involves constant improvement. And so we're constantly having to shift to just stay ahead of the curve a little bit and keep it fresh and keep it exciting. So you'll see our next model, the 620, has some elements that are new to Aux Box, but we believe are cutting edge and will continue to attract the early adopters, the innovators, the people they're interested in what's new.
I agree, yeah, and it's a very popular concept here in LA. I think that's what attracted me to your guys' page when I came across some of the different models. We're starting to see that a lot here in LA. So I know when we talked offline, you had mentioned at some point you guys would like to scale into the US, and I see that happening sooner than later because of just your whole concept, right? And what you guys have and the aesthetics of it just would quickly integrate with the people here in LA or Southern California in general. Not to mention that, for those of you who's maybe it's your first time listening to this podcast, I specialize in ADUs. So I'm constantly bringing different topics of discussions to the table for affordability, functionality, just sustainability, right? So many different concepts. And right now, modulars is a big one, and offsite construction. I have a meetup coming up in Tijuana, Mexico, which is going to be my first one international. But I'm doing it with a company called Preflex, which they do a lot of offsite builds, right? And they can build ADUs in a very short amount of time frame. And a lot of people here have to do it because of affordability. Again, we live in such high dense areas and it's very expensive to live in down the coast, right? So people are really leaning more towards modular homes. And even in the luxury space, I had a meetup last month in Solana Beach, and homes there are very expensive. You're close to La Jolla, Del Mar, like 15, 20 minutes outside of San Diego. And even in the luxury space, they're using a lot of your guys' models and aesthetics. You should check them out. I could see like how, it's very just natural colors and would you say earth elements, right, that come into play with it as well. So that's what I love about ADUs is that anybody can implement it, and there's so many different styles. Now, can you tell me a little bit more about the process, right? Like the permitting process. Do you need permits for some of these like smaller models? And what is the range in like your smallest model versus your biggest one? And what is the process with permitting when it comes to that?
Yeah, permitting is the big hurdle, I think, for the whole industry right now. And that's understandable because these municipalities and counties where they have to, there's a lot of education that needs to take place for them to be able to kind of seamlessly get it through, like they've been doing for years with traditional building. So two of our small models typically don't require a permit at all. They're under 10 square meters, which is the threshold for us here. But again, that depends on, it's literally a case by case basis. We make that decision. Our three larger models all will require a permit. And so there's a number of ways to kind of make it more seamless. We have a national code that we built out here. And so there's a Canadian Standards Association will certify the structure so that it's guaranteed to have met a certain standard, which meets the national building code. And then there's things we'll have to do for seismic, let's say, or snow loads that just to offset for specific geographical regions. And so the permitting can be anywhere from weeks, like 3 or 4 weeks to get it through, to literally over a year in some places. So that's a variable that someone needs to solve. And we're reaching, like you mentioned earlier, we're reaching a bit of a boiling point where we need housing of all types, and this is a great solution for it. And really what we just need is a path through the permitting process so that we can actually execute in a timely manner. And the person who solves that wins. Like the municipality who gets there first and is like, hey, look, we've got you're a pre-approved product. Here's the plots of land you can put it on. We're going to reach out to those people on your behalf, even as a community, to be like, look, you want this gorgeous ADU in your backyard to provide housing? You're good to go. You get a clear stamp drawing. 2 weeks from now we can start. I know the States is doing a better job of that than we are, and so we're probably a couple of years behind where you guys are at right now, but we'll get there. It's just trying to stay patient.
Yeah, honestly, you guys aren't that far behind. We've gotten a little bit better, but just for context, here in LA, you have about 86 jurisdictions, and during COVID, a lot of these municipalities hired third-party companies to help alleviate the revisions and the corrections back and forth to kind of minimize and streamline that process. But it just made it worse, right? Now it takes longer in some cases. But where I'm from in Long Beach, Long Beach actually has a goal of how many ADUs they want to build for the year. And they have a pretty streamlined process. So permitting with them can take 3 to 5 months, sometimes even over the counter if you know what you're doing with junior ADUs and the smaller models. So yeah, I mean, like when I'm helping investors or first-time homeowners who are looking to buy with the intention of building, I always bring up that, like let's focus on areas that have a streamlined process with the city. Let's start there first because now we've cut time, with permitting because we know that city has a pretty streamlined process. Whereas some other cities, believe it or not, don't even have an application yet for submittals, right? So yeah, it's complicated. And you're right. Whoever solves that issue will be the winner. I think with us, we see a lot of issues with the permitting and financing. So, which takes me to my next question. With you guys being more on the luxury side of things, how do people finance these models? Is it typically cash, or are they using other capital from other assets, or what does that look like?
we don't really know. Like, so because our customers have been kind of less price sensitive, they're savvy enough to generate the money, and it feels like a cash payment for us. Like we do.
Got it.
Well, there's like a it's split into tranches, but since interest rates have risen, we've seen a fairly substantial tightening, and with that uncertainty, just people aren't pulling, like, going ahead with the project as quickly as they would have, or they're unable to get the financing at the rate they want to justify say they're building putting an Airbnb in their backyard. Now the interest rates are getting such that the numbers are getting a little snug, and the risk goes up. And so we're seeing a tightening on that front. This is another area where, the institution that creates an instrument to fund these in a streamlined way will also win. And so I think like, I talk to banks. I've been talking to them for the last 6 months, trying to create something for this. They all know it intuitively. They know they've got to figure it out. It just doesn't feel like there's any rush to do so. So someone will do it, and then there'll be like an ADU financing program at all the big banks, and you'll just be able to say, hey, this is what I'm buying. If it's certified, you just get a clear path through. So hopefully someone figures that out soon, because I think it's important. I think for our market, we like to think that we can service the people wanting to get into the market. Yeah, a young couple could buy our big model and live in there for 5 years really comfortably. It's brand new, it's super efficient, it's really nice. So they can buy a little lot, put that on it, and it can be their way to get into the market, especially for markets like ours where they're super hard to get into. So
talk to me a little bit more about the markets. Like, what are homes going for roughly in your market? And obviously you guys have bigger lot sizes than we do, but just curious to know a little bit more about the market.
Yeah, it's we're on Vancouver Island, which is a super popular place for people to come and retire, and just live in general. So you're averaging probably 700 to $1 million for a house and piece of property, and then it goes up from there. Obviously, in Victoria, if you're downtown Victoria, you're going to be at least $1 million for a detached home, up to $2 million. And then if you're getting into anything new and nice, it's even more. So that's the range. We believe that there's a market at like the 600,000 or 700,000 for that young couple I'm talking about to get into the market, where they can buy a lot, put like one of our living models on it, and then either move on from there, like graduate from that into their next house, or even move the product off it and build something bigger as their family grows or whatever. So we think there's a unique case there.
I agree. Same here. With a lot of the first-time home buyers, the average homes here in Long Beach are about $700,000. That's your average sales price. So it's crazy, right? Like, how can a young couple afford a $700,000 payment, which right now with rates, it's looking like $6,000 a month.
Yeah.
So my conversation with them is always, whether it's a first-time home buying couple or a first-time investor, it's how can we help them offset their mortgage of $5,000-$6,000 a month. And the best thing to do is to have an ADU back there. 600 square feet will bring in an additional $2,500 a month on average, right? So then you do the math. That definitely helps you offset. And we're talking long-term. If you're doing short-term rentals, which here in Long Beach, you can't really do short-term rentals. So I had a webinar yesterday with my friend Jesse, who does midterm rentals. And his main focus is travel nurses, corporate stays, agencies, much more different model, but it's a good one. I actually prefer it versus short-term and long-term, because you're renting these homes for 3 to 6 months at a time, and you still have access to them whenever you want, right? So he just bought a tree home, and he's going to do something similar to what you guys have as well, because it just goes aesthetically pleasing with the property, and it's sitting on such a big acre lot that it makes sense. So yeah, I mean, going back to the financing, I think we definitely need more help with that here, even though a lot of people sometimes do have the capital. Just being able to leverage, ADU financing is honestly the two things that I'm always talking about, is how can we streamline and get better with permitting process, and better financing options for your average homeowner or even seasoned investor, right? Those are the top two things. Now, what are some of the reasons why most people are building them out there? Is it recreational? Is it for cash flow and passive income? I mean, here there's so many different reasons, but what are you guys seeing the most?
It's about 50-50. So there's people that are putting it just as a guest space. Almost all of our smaller models are studios or home offices. But this 240 model, I'm sitting in one right now actually. It has a full bathroom in it and a little kitchenette, and it's often an Airbnb. We've done a bunch at a resort here, so it's like, resorts that are wanting to maybe adjust their demographic that they cater to. They can swap out RV spaces for something like this, and it changes the vibe of the place. You have people that can fly in and stay versus bringing in an RV in a truck, and
right.
Everything's a little more contained. So, conversions like that. So that's a revenue generating product. Where we live, if you can, the short term numbers are fantastic, frankly. So if you have a piece of property that you can put one on and do short term, you can. It's easy to justify. For the midterm, I also like that, especially moving forward as they're starting to kind of
ban these
restrict.
ordinances.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
I think there's a big market there. We were just looking at a set of plans around one of the hospitals here, and it's perfect.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
there'll be a market there for sure.
Today. Like if you go to Furnish Finder or AirDNA, these are or actually Indeed.com, like you can look up different areas where they're hiring travel medical professionals, and you kind of target those neighborhoods and focus on building there or maximizing space in those areas, right? So yeah, I agree. I mean, that model is honestly the one that I see winning, because a lot of short-term rental ordinances will be banned or are starting to be just more restrictions around it, especially in HOAs. Which takes me to my next question. So we've talked about the permitting process. Now the actual build out itself, I'm pretty sure that's way more streamlined than your traditional stick build. Can you touch a little bit on that and walk us through that process and kind of time frames on that, and maybe some average costs on, your typical model? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for us, we can build them quite quickly. It ranges from about 130 hours to, for the new model we're coming out with is substantially more, like over 700 hours. But the 240 model is about 350 hours. And so as long as we have inventory here, we can actually build them quite quickly. So it looks like, there's some things we order in, our structural insulating panels, which we build with, and windows. If we don't have them in inventory, we order those in, and then it's just really an assembly process. And so the guys get, we kind of have the guys kind of stick to their specialty. So they do get to kind of go from start to finish, and they're involved in each part of the build. But certainly our crew kind of latches on to one part of the build that they like to do, and so that's what they're in charge of. And so, it's just the SIPs, the frame goes down, the SIPs go up, and then finishing starts, windows go in. And it's pretty straightforward. We're just in a big warehouse here. We have these dollies, we move them around, so they just roll out, get put on a flat deck trailer, and shipped out that way. So the process at this point is pretty straightforward. I mean, each time we introduce a new model, we have to go through it, and it's
testing phases.
Yeah, sure, but we keep most of the componentry the same. It's just a scale thing that changes. So, there's something to be. The one difference is it feels like every house you build out in traditional stick build, because the trades aren't synchronized. You just have a trade come in and do their part. Right. Here, everyone's watching what everyone else is doing, and there's just the level of accountability and responsibility to do your part well. I mean, if you don't, the guy's going to walk over from the next unit and be like, hey, you messed this up. That doesn't really happen in a traditional stick build. We blame each other, but the remedies never come. No one's actually taking accountability. Mm-hmm. And so it's nice in this environment, if you have start to finish in one place, you can get really streamlined, which is pretty cool. There's a bunch of efficiencies there that you just can't really achieve with a trade in and out and not seeing anybody else.
That was a really good point, that you brought up earlier is just the fact that a lot of people don't have culture, they don't have systems, processes your traditional construction. And not to mention, there's just, man, I've seen some crazy stuff in the traditional side. I'm like, man, people need to get it together. But yeah, you're right. It's difficult. So now everybody being involved just sinks the entire experience, right, and the process, and more accountability and transparency, which is some of my core values as well. I know you had some questions for me too. We're talking offline, and you had questions about, was it the city, or what was it that you really wanted to dive deep into here in the States that hopefully you have answers for?
Yeah, there's a couple things. I mean, we are, in our long-term goals, we intend to come down to the States, and it might happen sooner than later if need be. I was curious, as one of our value propositions, as a real estate agent, it's always interesting to know, do you actually run into this case where, in our real estate market, you don't really want to do a lateral move just to gain an extra bedroom or two? And so one of our value propositions is like, hey, we'll just stay where you're at and we'll drop off the extra room. Does that actually happen, or do people, are people even thinking that way? Do you actually see that such a scenario actually play out?
I do, because of the fact that interest rates are high. It really doesn't make sense for a lot of people to sell right now, especially if you bought a home within the last 4 to 5 years. You're most likely locked in at a rate under 5%, right? 2.5% to 5%. And so what I've seen a lot is it doesn't make sense for people to sell and buy, right? Yeah, they're going to sell high, but then they're also going to buy high with these rates. So it actually makes much more sense to build, whether it's traditional stick build, or modular or offsite. It just it makes way more sense to build at, let's say, 250 price per square foot versus the 700,000 price per square foot that houses are going for around that neighborhood. It just still makes sense. What people are doing for financing those types of ADUs or different types is HELOC loans. Mm-hmm. So they'll pull a home equity line of credit against the equity that they have on their home, because those loans are usually on an interest only, so their payments are very low, right? So let's say you finance a 600 square foot ADU, your payment may be somewhere between $500 to $1,000, and you can rent it out for $2,500 to $3,500, depending on the neighborhood and the layout and your exit strategy. So yeah, I mean, people do it all the time, and that's where I started niching down, because I figured, it just makes more sense for me to service the client now and help my current clients and past clients maximize their space. And eventually they're going to buy and rinse and repeat the process, and that's where I come in, right? So it is a long-term play, and I do see that often, a lot lately.
Well, I think that's exactly what I was driving at, was like, we've connected with like hundreds of realtors in an attempt to develop a relationship like this, and they don't quite grasp that that there's huge value in offering that advice to their clients versus forcing them into a sale, or pushing. I didn't say forcing them, but pushing them toward a sale. Whereas if you're thinking long term, you can pull this off.
They're so short-term minded, right? Like they right away want to see, like, okay, well, how am I getting paid out of this, right? Am I getting a commission if I refer clients out to Aux Box, right? Like, how much are you going to pay me? When that's a whole other separate thing, right? It's like, yes, you can get a finder's fee or a referral fee depending on what market you're in, but I don't even do it for that. Like right now, I'm at Cameron's office. In Seal Beach. He's the owner of ADU West Coast. So they're a design and build firm, and they do multiple ADU projects here in Long Beach and Seal Beach. But because I have that relationship with him, I get to use this podcast studio, and it's a pretty dope one, right? And we do meetups together, and we help each other out. And I send him clients, he sends me referrals on the real estate side, and I'm not looking for the commission right now. I'm really looking to service my clients, because that will then turn into more deals and more relationships. Like at the end of the day, if you're in real estate for just a short-term minded purpose, you're not going to get really far. And I'm in this for the long run. I've been doing this for over 10 years. So for me, it's just the long-term play, right? I know that relationships are going to pay the biggest ROI than your commissions or assets for sure.
Yeah, I can appreciate that, and I'm a firm believer in exactly that. You got to play the long game. So I appreciate what you're doing to
Thank
kind of
you.
blend those two things together, because I think it's important. I wish more real estate agents would do that. I mean, it's the way it's going to go. Like, Europe is a little ahead of us on this in terms of like prefab and so on, and I think it's just we have a lot of space here. I mean, maybe more where we're at to take advantage of, and I think real estate agents, man, they really could take advantage of it.
They could,
They
because
totally
we
could.
should be more of an advisor, right? And like what you talked about at the beginning of the episode was the education. Cities, municipalities lack education. Everybody does, because let's be honest, like ADUs, yes, the concept has been around for a long time, but legislation, at least here in California, made it much more feasible in 2020. We're in 2023, beginning of 2023. So, and not to mention we had COVID. So we're still behind as far as education goes. I think eventually I've seen a lot more realtors kind of jump on the ADU bandwagon this year. And a lot of them, I leave it open for them to come to my meetups so they can educate themselves. That builds confidence. You add that skill set to your belt and you bring that to your clients. Like, I would appreciate that, right? From a consumer standpoint, if you came to me and said, hey, explore this option on maximizing your space rather than selling it, let's figure out how you can keep it and then use that income to help you buy more. Like, it's
Yeah.
a no-brainer in my
Yeah.
mind, right? Yeah.
The other piece to that is, are you seeing a correlation in terms of, let's say you spend 200 grand on an ADU for your backyard. Does that correlate directly into the market value of that property?
That's another good question and a very popular one. Yes and no. It depends. Depends on what type of ADU, right? Depends on the layout, depends on the location, depends on how much income it's generating. I have an appraiser, his name is Sydney, who I'll connect you with. Maybe you guys can do like your first podcast together. He's a speaker at a lot of my meetups, and the reason why I started bringing him on too is one, because he's an ADU advocate, but two, he really dives deep into how you're actually going to appraise these ADUs, because that's another question, right? It's like, what's the ARV after the build out, or after, I install this ADU in my backyard. But every single one is different. You've got ground up, you have detached, you have attached, you have stick build, you have modular. There's so many, and then you have to look at that, look at the income that it's generating. I would say, just rule of thumb, I usually go with 25 to 35% of the average price per square foot, sales price per square foot in that neighborhood. So let's say in Long Beach, average price point or sales price for a square foot is 700. I would go with 35% of that, for value add
I see.
on the square footage that you're adding with the ADU. Does that make sense? So let's say, yeah, your 600 square foot ADU is going to cost 200,000. Maybe in some parts of Long Beach or down the coast, yeah, you might get, your 200 back within a year. But that was also happening in the last 3-4 years when the market was going like this.
Right.
So now what I tell people is, again, ADUs are long term. So you can't expect to spend 150, 250,000 on your project and expect to have those returns 12 months later, right?
Sure.
Like, if the market is not appreciating as quickly as it has been, or really as unrealistic as it had been for the last 4 years. So let's go back to average numbers, and if on average it's 4 to 7% appreciation, then just calculate that. And I would tell people to be conservative, and focus more on the cash flow. The appreciation will come with time. So that would be my answer for that.
Yeah, that's a good metric. The thing that we've looked at doing here is you buy a piece of property with an existing dwelling on it in an urban area, say near us, like Victoria or something, and it's like, maybe you're into it for like 1.3, 1.4 million, and then you put an ADU on it, but you live in the ADU and rent out the main dwelling.
Right.
And then it starts to kind of make sense because you can get such a high rent for the main dwelling. The there's some municipalities out here that are changing the rules so you could have 3 dwelling units. Right now, it's usually 1 or 2. Is anyone entertaining that, having a 3rd dwelling on a single property?
Yes. So here in California, you can build, in most cases, 2 ADUs. One junior ADU, which is a junior ADU is anything under 500 square feet. That has to be attached to the main home. But you can technically have one junior ADU attached to the main home. And then on top of that, a standalone ADU, making it 3 units, right? You've got the main home, the attached unit, and your detached unit. So yes, you can have 2. You can build up to 1,200 square feet. And I think the smallest ADU I've seen is like 150 square feet.
I see.
Which is similar to one of your guys' models, right? I saw the office one, right? I'm assuming that's around that same square footage.
Yeah, the one I'm in inside here is about 160 square feet, the actual interior dimension. So.
And usually for those, I don't think you need a permit for anything under 150, I believe.
For the small ones, I see. Yeah, we do ship product down to the States. It's usually just our smaller ones though. So we're not requiring, like, there's no plumbing or anything. So they're not actually a living space. They're usually an office or something. So we know it's a great market for us. We just need to. I appreciate learning from you.
Well, let me know how I can be of service and help. It would be cool to have a meetup here and maybe have you guys as a guest speaker, or you guys have a meetup out there. There's so many different ways that we can collaborate. And social media really helps, right? I've made a lot of great connections through social media, and most of my meetups are from people I meet on social media that, one, they align with the goals, the vision, what I see, and the ADU community that we're building collectively, right? Because I can't do this on my own, but it would be cool to see you guys like scale here and share the process, because it's a really cool concept that you guys have. That I think here you guys would kill it. Like, I see that a lot right now. People care about time frame, especially with where the market's going. So people are just trying to figure out, like, okay, where can we get these plans approved ASAP, and then get the build out and start collecting cash flow as soon as possible, right?
Yeah, 100%. I think it all circles back to the willingness for the municipalities to help us out. Throw us a bone.
And I think by advocating, right, people like you and I who are putting this content out there, educating consumers, right, because sometimes people get impatient or they don't understand the process. This really helps people put it in perspective. Like, hey, we're doing the best that we can to streamline the process for you and make it a smooth process, but we've got so many people involved and with the cities that we have to just be a little bit more patient. But it still matters who you work with, right? Because you want to make sure that we can at least control whatever it is that we can control. And all the other variables, leave it up to the city. But kind of navigate your way through it. I'm sure, by going to the city so many times, you start developing relationships too. Mm-hmm. And I'll say that relationships are a big part of this as well. I've made a lot of relationships with people in the city. Even the mayor of Long Beach, he was looking to build an ADU, and I got to meet him, so that was pretty cool. So yeah, just advocating, educating, and that will bring you into alignment with the people that I think you and I should be working with, right, and helping.
I totally agree. I think the other piece to that is the a quality product. Like, it's so important to just have something that's right. Like, it's got to be quality. Otherwise, we're going to kind of just circle back to like. What the stigma can be around manufactured homes. So for us, we find if we can get people through our shop and actually in touch with the product, they go, oh, this is really nice, and this is something I would buy. It's like, well, of course, but we have this idea in our head about what
around that. I would talk a little bit more about that. Like, what are some of those stigmas, right? And how do you guys overcome that objection, or just have more quality, right? What does that look like for you guys?
We just have one of our core beliefs is quality. So we can really only build quality. Every time we try to compromise to get our price point down or something, we end up struggling a lot. So we don't. We kind of do the best we can with the best materials available to us. The best way we can demonstrate it is just literally have people come. we have like an experiences page on our website now where you can go and, some of them are rentals, so you can just go and stay in one. Like if you wanted to buy one, you could go test drive it, like go sleep in it and experience it in real time. And it'll quickly speak to the quality. I mean, if you're in one for 1 minute, you can tell it's special.
Good quality, yeah.
Yeah, we take a lot of pride in that. Also, we're getting help from our provincial government because they're really elevating the requirements around energy codes. So we have what's called the STEP code here, and they're just slowly ratcheting it up to make every build much better and more energy efficient. And at first it felt like a threat to the industry, but I think it's going to kind of raise the bar for everybody, which I think is ultimately
as it should. I mean, here in California, for all new builds, you do need solar panels. So even if it's a 400 square foot ADU, if it's ground up construction, it will need solar panels. Sorry.
Yeah.
All new ground up construction. So yeah, I mean, I'm glad that we were able to have this dope conversation and, share thoughts. It seems like we're in alignment. I really want to introduce you to a lot of the people on my team, like my appraisers, some of my lenders who you can connect with. Actually, Sydney was thinking of building like a pool home, and he was looking for a company like you guys. So yeah, whatever we can do to help you guys scale here would be really cool, and I'm all for that. So do you have any other questions for me while I look at our question lineup here?
No, this is great. I'm glad we connected. Like I said, I'm glad you reached out. It's we haven't had a lot of real estate agents reach out, and once I looked into it, I realized that you're doing something special and really tied into our community. So of course I wanted to chat to you. So this has been fun.
Yeah, thank you. I don't know if I shared with you, but I'm having another podcast on Thursday with my good friend David, who I will also introduce you to. He's in Canada.
Okay.
I think he's in Montreal. Yes. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's in Montreal. But, one Canadian to another. He owns a brokerage, and he has a whole bunch of realtors. And what I like about David is that he's an innovative. He's a lot about branding. I think branding, like if I go to your Instagram page, branding speaks to me, right? Like I could just tell that you guys put a lot of time, energy, and effort into your work and what you guys do. And it just transmits through your feed, right? Because it's your branding that really caught my attention. So he talks a lot about branding and marketing. I'll make sure you guys can connect, and hopefully he can help you guys grow your community out there. And anything that I can do, I mean, if you guys ever wanted to do a meetup out there, I would even be willing to fly out there and have like a meetup, right? I think what I'm doing out here, you guys should definitely be doing. And if you want me to show you my systems and processes on the back end, I'll show you how I come up with these meetups and who you can specifically target. And the beauty to these meetups is I get to invite whoever I want as a speaker. I'm very intentional about who I have, right? Because the reason why I started with the meetups is I met a few ADU companies that really weren't doing what they said they were doing. And so I had to really vet people. And that's kind of what led me to take action with the meetups. And it's been awesome. I've made so many connections, met so many people, and it translates into business, right? Because if I know, like, and trust you, and I like what you stand for, we're eventually going to do business together. So
That's right.
I feel like you and we're eventually going to do business together. And so I'm putting it out there in the universe already.
Love it. You're bringing up something else that's interesting that we've found being part of this kind of community at large. People will call us up that are starting an ADU company just like ours. He'll just straight up give me a call and be like, hey, like I got some questions. Are you willing to answer? And absolutely. And so,
Right.
certainly the Canadian manufacturers, we know each other. We've even they'll come to our shop. We've gone to theirs. It's pretty awesome. So that feels a bit unique in terms of, we're competition, but there's enough to go around for everybody. We're trying to change
That
the industry.
abundant mindset, right? And I've made a lot of connections with a lot of ADU companies because I host meetups all down the coast from Long Beach all the way up to San Diego. So it's gotten to the point where a lot of the ADU companies that I know up in San Diego want to do business with, like Cameron here in Seal Beach, because everybody's looking to scale, right? A lot of LA companies want to see how they can scale in San Diego, up north, but you need manpower or woman power. In order to do that, you need boots on the ground. So relationships matter, even within the people that quote unquote you consider competition. I think there's enough for everybody, and somehow everybody can collaborate. If we were more collaborative, we would actually get more done. You know, I think so.
I agree. I totally agree.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Landon. It's been a pleasure. It's 12:40 now. I want to be mindful of your time and my time. Any closing thoughts? I really enjoyed this episode. I really
Yeah,
did.
this is awesome. No, I look forward. Any reason to come down to California, I'll take it. So I'll make it.
Whenever you want, I'll take you around Long Beach. Now you have somebody out here, right? If you guys ever do have any projects here, I would open up my network to you guys in any way that you guys need it. So definitely, you have my number, you've got my info, and we'll be in touch. You know, I know we've talked offline, so we'll definitely see how we can help each other out.
Yeah.
But that's it for now, guys. Please make sure you guys check out Landon. Can you share your Instagram and maybe share anything you have coming up as far as events or projects, or how can people connect with you? You know, besides social media.
Yeah, Instagram is like one place that's really we invest a lot in. So it's to search Aux Box on Instagram. Also, our website is exceptional. A shout out to Dana who
I
helped
checked it out.
create it. Yeah,
Yeah.
auxbox.ca. It's a fantastic website. You can really get to know us and our product there. And of course, just reach out to me anytime. Email is usually best. Landon at auxbox.ca. So happy to field any emails.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, I'll see you guys on the next one. Thank you again so much, Landon, and I'll see you guys soon.
Thank you.
Bye.